The Midwest supporting, bruiser loving, positivity spreading, world's most dangerous podcast. Join former pro wrestler and promoter Dave Dynasty as he supports and promotes Midwest pro wrestling. Keep on growing with the Midwest Express. This is the Dave Dynasty Show.
And greetings and welcome to the Dave Dynasty Show. I am your host, Dave Dynasty. Thank you for joining us today. How is everybody? I'm doing just wonderful. I got to give a shout out today as I release this episode. It is the good Dr. Jerry Graham Jr.'s birthday. Happy birthday, Doctor. I put a blurb out on Facebook and Twitter, but I wanted to give the shout out here. So when you're on social media, go out there and say happy birthday. You can just reply on our post. The doctor will see him because he's tagged in those posts. And it's good to wish him well. Hey, speaking of social media, right? Everybody's on Facebook, right? Everybody's got a Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, if you dig what we do and you like positivity and you like upbeat stuff and you're tired of seeing all the bullshit and all the political stuff and all that, man. And you're into wrestling history and cool stuff like that, especially in the Midwest. Why don't you give me a friend request, right? You can just look me up at Dave Dynasty. It's not hard to miss. There shouldn't be too many out there. I don't know. Maybe are there other Dave Dynasties? I'm guessing there probably could. Actually, I know there is. Let me give you this story. All of my social media, handles or whatever you want to call them is just the Dave Dynasty, right? Except for Instagram where it's the _Dave Dynasty because somebody has the Dave Dynasty. And by looking at this guy's Instagram, which he hasn't posted on in 5 or 6 years, it appears he's a rapper or something maybe, or I don't know what, but, definitely not me. But the OCD in my head just wants to explode because the one social media handle, is different. So, I wish a guy would just close up shop so I could change mine up and have the same across the board, but, it is what it is. But anyway, back to Facebook. Look me up on Facebook. Look up Dave Dynasty. You'll see me, with my cool hat on and everything. But if you look at my banners and stuff, it talks about the show. And give me a friend request. You'll see lots of cool stuff. Again, I don't share political stuff. I don't do any of that crap, but I like to have people on. We also have a page for the Dave Dynasty Show. You can look that up. And that's mostly just kind of official stuff. I share a lot more on my personal page, or my Dave Dynasty page. So you join me there. And if you're on Twitter, look me up. Like I said before, it is just at the Dave Dynasty. Those are my two most active social media platforms, Facebook and, Twitter. I really enjoy those. I'm very active on there. I do have an Instagram. Again, it is the _ Dave Dynasty. And I do post there periodically. So you can, follow me there if you like as well. And do make sure you subscribe to me on YouTube. Just look up Dave Dynasty. You can not only find all the podcast episodes on there. There's a lot of great classic wrestling from the Midwest and the WWA particularly that I put up, and lots of other cool stuff on there as well. So make sure you follow me there. Getting all the social media plugs out of the way early. So the big news in wrestling this week, which has a direct effect to the Midwest, is that CM Punk and Colt Cabana won their defamation case against that was brought against them with Dr. Amann of the WWE. And here's the deal. I think this is a cool thing. I'm a CM Punk fan. Always enjoyed his work. I enjoy Colt Cabana when he's not too over the top, crazy, ridiculous, humorous. But I do have respect for these guys and what they've done in the past, and where they've come from, being straight from the Midwest. And more than anything, I'm just glad this is all behind them. I'm glad they can move on. It's a big thing right now, right? It's a big thing that, somebody small, kind of had a battle with somebody from the WWE and they came out all right. And I didn't follow it too closely. I don't know all the details. I don't really care about all the details. But it is what it is. That's kind of the big news. And like I said, these guys are both from Chicago. So there's an obvious, Midwest thing there with that. Otherwise, everything's kind of run of the mill kosher. I know that the episode's a little delayed, about a week delayed, maybe even more. As most of you know, I had a neck injury that stemmed from my days of active wrestling many moons ago, kids. I had some compressed vertebrae and discs or whatever in my neck. I can't remember what they call it. That I dealt with for, I don't know, 10, 12 years, something like that, before I finally broke down and had neck fusion surgery. I got a steel plate in my neck, fused two of the vertebrae together. All that good jazz. Got cadaver thing, piece put in there. It's all kinds of really cool, wacky stuff. If you look at my Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, there's some X-ray pictures in there of my plate and screws. But I'm still, I'm about a year removed from the surgery, but I'm still adapting. I'm still learning, what my new limitations are and how this affects my day-to-day life. And sometimes, I'm not 100%. I'm better than I was, but that's clear. But I'm not back to 100%. I will never be. I've come to that realization. And obviously there are things I can't do. And sometimes it just flares up, right? It just hurts. The neck hurts. It hurts up into my head and my jaw, maybe sometimes different things down into my shoulders and my back. And, and it still has these moments where it's bad. And over the week and the week and a half, it's kind of been bad, and it's kind of affected, so I kind of backed off and took it easy. I didn't want to talk a lot, do things like that might make it even worse. I'm coming out of it. It's feeling a little better now. But that's kind of what the delay. I'm not making excuses. I kind of just explaining the situation. It's one of those things I put off for a long time doing. Because when it happened and they wanted to do surgery, right? Surgery wasn't what it is now. So it was a lot riskier, a lot more involved. So I chose the path of just, hanging it up, retiring from active wrestling and waiting it out, until it got to the point where I couldn't wait anymore. And like I said, last year I had the neck fusion surgery. But the episode is here finally. Feels like forever ago that we did these interviews with these guys, but today we have Sign Guy on, who I've known for a long time. It's just the beginning of my career in wrestling. I've known Sign Guy from Midwest, here from Central Indiana. He knows all about my days in the ring and everything else. And a good friend of mine, known him for a long time. He is on today with a great interview, conducted by good old Ike Isaacs. And then we have Whatever Happened to Quicksilver. Anybody who remembers shows in the 80s and 90s in the Midwest, particularly in Indiana, knows who Quicksilver is. He's on the show, catching up with him a little bit. Great stuff, good stuff. Gotta love it. But we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we will have that interview with Sign Guy. So stick around.
Ladies and gentlemen, and the rest of you jabronis, it's Sean and Dave here.
Did you grow up on WWE and refuse to grow out of it? We have the show for you. Eat, Sleep, Podcast, Repeat.
Courtesy of FM99 WNOR, we are a weekly wrestling podcast.
Join us as we go over WWE news, programming, superstar interviews, and discuss topics and questions from you, the listener.
Including some really god-awful celebrity impressions.
Not that bad.
They're really bad, Dave. Find us on FM99.com under the media tab and major podcast apps, including iTunes and SoundCloud. Just search ESPR.
And welcome back to the Dave Dynasty Show. I am your co-host, Ike Isaacs, and today we're joined with a very special guest on a very special night. We have Sign Guy. How are we doing today?
Doing well, Ike. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. As I was telling this guy before we started, I'm actually coming back from a cold, so I'm doing pretty good, all things considered. But this is a very interesting episode for a couple of reasons. This is the first time we've ever talked to Sign Guy. This is the first time I've ever recorded a podcast at midnight, and this is the first time I've also ever recorded a podcast while being sick. So it's going to be an interesting night.
Groundbreaking here on the Dave Dynasty Show. I love that.
That is exactly right. Groundbreaking. That's exact words I would use. All right. Well, we're just going to jump right into it. So kind of the first question that we usually like to ask is, where are you from, Sign Guy?
Originally from Columbus, Indiana, and currently I'm residing here in Thez country up here in Seattle.
Oh, very nice. So another Columbus native. I myself am also from the Columbus, Indiana area. Wonderful, wonderful town, kind of. But very nice, very nice. So me and Sign also have talked before. I was on his show, Turnbuckle Turmoil. Not so subtle, but and we've actually looked at it, but he got to know more about me than anything. So I guess the next question would be is, where did your love for wrestling start? What wrestling?
First love of wrestling formed, I was watching the UWF, which was Bill Watts' company when it was on national TV. It was on Channel 4 out of Indianapolis. And they ran an angle where Eddie Gilbert was the number one heel, Tommy Gilbert was the senior official, and he was conflicted because he was supposed to be the law and order of the company and the head referee, but here was his son breaking every rule he could, flying in the face of authority, and Tommy Gilbert ended up having to resign as referee over the actions of his son, and I felt so bad for Tommy Gilbert. I had to keep watching to find out what happened to that man. I remember wanting to just buy him lunch or something to try to make him feel better. It took me over 20 years, but I did buy him that lunch.
Wow. So that's where it all started. That was the I guess you could say the birth of Sign Guy.
Absolutely.
So obviously, when you start watching wrestling, I can attest to this. When you start watching wrestling, you're in a whole different world. So with all things, you start to see the truth. So at what point in time did you see the curtain open, the veil of kayfabe? How did that react with you, and when did you learn about that?
Well, obviously, there's people that always say, "Oh, that's not on the up and up. That's not on the up and up." But I'll tell you, when I was absolutely forced to see the curtain wide open, when I first went to an HPW show there in Columbus, it was at the fairgrounds, and it was their first show there. We got there really early because we didn't know if they would have seats available or if there'd be a long line, so we got there pretty early, and some of the wrestlers came out, asked what we were doing. We said, "Oh, we're just here to get in line for tickets for the show," so they asked us to come back because they were in the ring training, so they didn't want fans around. So I said, "Oh, that's no problem." Fast forward a year later, I was a familiar face there, and a lot of the boys saw something in me for whatever reason. A lot of them came to kind of trust me, and I go to the first ever outdoor HPW show, which was behind a little pizza place in Gnawbone, Indiana, and the wrestlers were working out in the ring when I got there, because I got there, again, a little bit early. So I started to turn around to walk away. They called me over and started talking to me while guys were working out in the ring, going over their matches, working on moves. One of the people working on said moves and going over the match, a young man that was about to make his professional wrestling debut as far as entering competition, by the name of Dave Dynasty.
Wow. So not only was this one of those times where the curtains really opened for you, you also got to see a young Dave Dynasty in the ring. I bet that was a sight.
It was. He was working, as I recall it to be, on a drop hold spot.
Oh, wow. I feel like Dave needs to, have all the stories we tell about Dave today, he needs to make his own version of them. Be like, yes, I remember that story.
Hopefully he does. It was a very unique show. There were roughly 25, 30 people in attendance. The show was a botch show, basically, and the pizza place decided to promote the show day of, an hour before first bell. So very few people knew that this was happening. But ironically, there were people from Chicago driving on 46 that just saw a wrestling ring behind this pizza place in sort of yard environment. They pulled over to see what was going on, stayed and watched the show.
Wow. So that's an extra special, extra special match. Just throw up a ring in behind this pizza shop and let's go at it. So
I was also there that Tommy Rich was right off of his ECW run with the FBI, and when I tried to get a "Where's my pizza" chant going, playing off the old ECW chant, he literally explained to me how to go inside and order a pizza.
Oh my god. And that doesn't surprise me at all. that he would do that. Oh my god. So okay, so you started loving wrestling. You eventually started going to these, crazy shows, seeing the reality of things. When was it this was like something that you wanted to be a part of? At what point did that happen?
I get into it than anything. Jerry Wilson, Dice Man Ronnie Vegas, Bo Jr., they saw something in me, and they would feed to me just sitting in the front row as a fan. They would trust me to do spots. It wasn't something they said for me to do. It wasn't something that was really vocal, but they would communicate non-verbally with me. I knew what to do, knew where to be, knew what they wanted. And eventually when we were leaving town to come out to Seattle, they put me in an angle, and that was my first actual go to the locker room for something environment. And whenever we would go back into town to Columbus, I would make sure I would swing by, and we'd always do something at HPW. And that experience led to experiences in a couple other promotions, and then promotions out here were told that I had experience, and some of the people out here started for me, and I started getting on promotions out here, and I've expanded. I've worked in many, many states over the years, and it was all really based off just some of the guys at HPW just seeing something in me and wanting to use me.
Going to be a part of this now. You weren't like, oh, I want to get into.
It was basically like that, just really organic.
No, absolutely.
Never a conscious, hey, I'm going to do this. Hey, would you book me? It was just guys wanting to use me, and that led to other guys wanting to use me, so forth and so on.
Absolutely. Now, there's obviously that progression. You see, you're a fan, you become an enlightened fan, and and then there's beyond, of course. But then when you start stepping into the actual, business part of it, doing spots, getting involved, you definitely get to see an entirely different side of wrestling. You get to see the behind the scenes, the setup. I feel like that's a unique opportunity. But what I also want to kind of dig into the name Sign Guy. Now, I've never had this detailed explained to me, but how did the name of Sign Guy come about? Like, what was the what's the word? What was the what brought that about?
Jerry Wilson. Once again, it was Jerry Wilson that gave me the name. I used to show up with signs, and they would be usually glued to a cookie sheet or a pizza pan or something. Unfortunately, once in a while, I would slip and fall on the cookie sheet or whatever, would go into the hands of Dice Man, who would trip and fall and have to go into the head of an opponent 6, 8, 7 times, whatever. But that's where that started.
So literally, you show with signs like Sign Guy.
Yep, that is where that started. Jerry Wilson.
Hey, simple beginnings. That's all we need. So then after you made the progression into, being an active participant and starting that realm of your, I guess you could say, career, did you get to achieve any, I guess you could say, dream, not necessarily matches, but dream encounters with people? Were there anybody that you were wanting to go and work with that you did get to go work with?
Constantly, more times than I could possibly count, honestly. I mean, just the list of people that I worked with is just incredible to me. I've been in the ring with Greg Valentine, with Bill Eadie, with Dice Man, with TJ Powers, Austin James, guys that I watched, coming up for years. High Roller accepted me as one of their own, which is huge for me. My holy trinity in wrestling is the Gilbert family as a whole, Terry Funk, and Kevin Sullivan. I've been in the Gilbert family home multiple times, consider them family, and Kevin Sullivan is a regular writing partner with me.
Oh, wow. So you've almost completed the entire trinity. Are there plans to get the Funk in there at some point?
I would love to. I have had Kevin Sullivan talking to Terry Funk on the phone while we were riding to a town before, but that's as close as I've come, unfortunately.
Wow. So like I said, the Holy Trinity's almost there. I think we need to start a hashtag, Sign Guy Meets Funk or something like that.
That would be huge. I would love for that to happen. We came a little bit closer last year. I was supposed to have hit a show in California that Kevin Sullivan was trying to get me on, which Terry Funk was going to appear, but it didn't work out in the end.
Yeah, man. So you're like, oh, so close, so close.
Yeah, you never count on it until it's actually happening in this business.
That's absolutely right. So much unpredictability, which is sometimes good, but sometimes bad. So, we've talked a lot about, how you've kind of progressed, I guess you could say, the evolution of Sign Guy. He started out as a fan. The veil was lifted, and he stepped into the role of Sign Guy. And it seems like you've been quite a bit of not necessarily all over the place, but you've gone to quite a few places and gotten to kind of be out there and put yourself out there. But something that I'm curious about, and I think some of the Dave Dynasty fans may be curious about, is like you said, you were around for the inception of Dave Dynasty. You were there for his first match. So my question is, do you have any good Dave Dynasty stories? Stuff that would make his mama blush. No, I'm kidding.
Hopefully not. But, yeah, I remember him working out prior to that first match. It was, I believe, a six-man tag match. And he was the manager of Outlaw Jesse Houston at that point, and they were putting him in a match. I remember that very well. I remember the start of the feud. It was Dave Dynasty feuding with his little brother Donnie Dynasty over the Dynasty name. Dave won it, and Donnie had to adopt the name Donnie Idol.
Oh, wow. So that's another prominent figure, and I would say probably, and still in wrestling now, especially in the Columbus area, is Donnie Idol. So that's, again, another huge inception moment. You saw the creation of Donnie Idol.
I did, and I later had both tag team with him in my first ever in-ring match as a wrestler, and later he was one of my opponents when it was myself and Dice against Donnie Idol and Eugene in a Falls Count Anywhere street fight hair match.
That's a lot of stipulations.
Eugene put in a lot of stipulations in that match.
So when you say Eugene, do you mean like the Eugene, the one from the WWE?
The one and the same.
Oh, wow. So I bet that was pretty interesting. But actually, if you wouldn't mind rewinding, you said that your first match ever was with Donnie Idol.
Yes, it was an 8-man tag match, and my partners were a guy by the name of the Gravedigger, who I only met that night, never saw him before or since, Donnie Idol, and I believe the other guy was he used to be a Moondog. The name will come to me hours later, and you will get a call saying, I remember it. But, yeah, it was a guy who used to be a Moondog down in the Memphis territory. I'll eventually think of it.
Right on. So then, with that, then, I bet that was a pretty interesting experience with that being your first match, having seen, this character come to life, probably a while before, and then being able to have your first match with them. So, what, to kind of step away from the Dave Dynasty story, what was your first match like? How did that go?
That was interesting. Also, it was Billy Ray Hickerson. I remember Billy Ray Hickerson was the man's name, and it was interesting. I actually got the pinfall on Jerry Wilson in that match when special guest referee Scotty Levins turned against Jerry Wilson, and he hit Jerry with the stunner. I got the pinfall. I took a lot of punishment in that match, a lot of punishment. And when I got the pinfall, the crowd turned riotous. There was not a full-blown riot, but it got pretty scary for several minutes. I remember Ox Harley had his hat stolen by a fan in the confusion, which upset him quite a bit. There are people jumping on Donnie's back. Billy Ray Hickerson actually wanted me to grab the rebel flag that he used to carry from the locker room. By the time I grabbed it and started back, he was waving me off because the fans were too out of control at that point. He didn't want to add to it. But it got scary afterwards, but as far as first matches went, I was pretty terrible, I'm sure, but we got through it. It was an acceptable match, I think, and the fans hated me the rest of my career until I broke my face.
Absolutely. So, I mean, for a first match, that's pretty incredible. You started a riot, so I would expect nothing less. But let me ask you, you kind of stuck around, obviously, in the Midwest for a while, and then like we'd mentioned, you moved out. So, tell us a little bit about that. Tell us what it was, leaving the Midwest and moving to the Pacific Northwest.
Well, as far as wrestling went, really most of what I did was in the Midwest. I would go out a couple times a year and work HPW shows. I did New Era a little bit, and I'd stay close to there. I was out here for a few years before I actually did anything in the Northwest. I would go to shows, but it took a little bit before people realized I did work in the Midwest and started pushing for promoters to use me. And then once that did happen, it opened the door to other promoters, and now I work on a fairly regular basis.
That's fantastic. So then, I guess kind of an off-topic question, what's the weather like compared to the Midwest?
Mild. It's very mild compared to the Midwest.
I would say it was snowing last week, so I that's fantastic being in Indiana and it just snowing in the middle of April. Anyways, I'm not bitter. So, let me ask you this as well, because you kind of mentioned it, but what is the wrestling scene different up there in the Pacific Northwest? Because I know what it's like in I would say the Illinois, Indiana, Ohio general area, but what's it like on that side of the country?
Yeah, I would say the fans are different. A lot of the fans here are fans from the Don Owens era, and a lot of the fans would go to the Don Owens territory, and they like that style of wrestling. So a lot of the companies present that style of wrestling, and then you have a different group of fans that are into sort of the gimmicky side of wrestling and are the, I guess, newsletter type of fans that read the dirt sheets and the internet and so forth and are into the like hardcore independent scene. That's why companies out here like 321 and Defy Wrestling are thriving, because 321 is a really gimmick-heavy promotion. It's an offshoot of Hood Slam. A couple of guys out of Hood Slam actually helped start 321, and it's doing really well out here. And then you have Defy, which brings in lots of the top independent names. They sell out pretty much every show, and the tickets for general admission are close to $50 at a Defy show, so they are not cheap, but they're still doing great numbers.
I want to say for $50 a ticket, I'd hope it'd be a good show.
I mean, they will bring in top names as surprises. One show not too long ago, the Lucha Brothers came in unannounced to wrestle one of the top tag teams in the Pacific Northwest. So you never know who's going to show up. Tommy Dreamer was just out here for them. Shane Strickland's a regular. Jeff Cobb is a regular. Davey Richards, semi-regular. So they got a lot of top talent that passed through Defy.
Wow. So that's pretty awesome, though. I mean, you don't see a lot of those promotions that, have the ability to do that and keep it up. So that's actually pretty cool. If I'm ever in that area, I'll have to check it out. But
definitely. We used to have a promotion out here called Pinnacle Pro, which was a smaller promotion, and they ran a very small venue. The maximum fans they could get was 200, and tickets were for a standard independent show, so they weren't making hardly any money, but they had Harry Smith, T.J. Wilson, Davey Richards, Jack Evans, Dr. Tom Pritchard, Bo James, all on the same show, plus 10 to 15 local independent guys that were just starting out, and the payroll was just huge. They didn't last very long, but people that were around, both fans and wrestlers, really fondly remember that.
Oh, absolutely. I'd imagine. So let me ask you this. Living, so far away from the Midwest, you get to experience a lot of kind of different things. I guess another kind of off-topic question: what is the food like up there? Because I've been to the West Coast, actually once, and I've been to the East Coast and I've noticed that there's a very different scene. So what's the food like?
A lot of good seafood out here because we're so close to the ocean. Puget Sound is actually an offshoot of the Pacific Ocean. There's a lot of great seafood out here. You have a lot of really great restaurants popping up all the time because Seattle is a tech city that brings in a lot of the technical people that work for computer companies and tech companies. So there's a lot of money in Seattle. So you get a lot of great dining experiences that pop up over this area.
No, absolutely. So I guess a little bit more back to what we were talking about before, because I like to travel, so I like to have kind of a a pre notion of what I'm getting myself into if I do travel. So I'll keep that in mind. But back on topic a little bit, beyond being just sign guy and beyond doing these shows and doing all that, you also do a podcast. Now, as we kind of mentioned earlier, I was on your show, very, very excited, very awesome show, had a lot of fun, but tell us how Turnbuckle Turmoil started. When did that start, and kind of how did you get it off the ground?
I did not get it off the ground myself. What happened was there were two fans that dated back to the Don Owens era. They used to go to matches in Longview, Washington when Portland was a territory. And there was a company called Tulalip Championship Wrestling that started a few years ago in Marysville, Washington. It was close to where they lived, so they started going to this independent company to see wrestling again for the first time in years. QT, as you heard the other day when you were on our show, is a little bit different. And he thought it would be a great idea one day to put on a luchador mask, run to the ring, and give high fives to some of the wrestlers. And his friend was going to record this. He thought, no problem, just run down, high five, run back. QT puts on the mask, runs down to the ring, starts high-fiving, but then he starts to challenge one of the wrestlers, which may have been the wrong course of action for QT, and things got rather tense. So QT's friend JD thought, rather than have the wrestlers kill him, maybe if we talk to them on this podcast, then that would satisfy him enough he wouldn't try to dive into the ring in matches and get slaughtered to death. So they launched Turnbuckle Turmoil, and a few months into the show, probably 6 months or so, I said, hey, if you ever need a guest to fill in or whatever, just let me know. I'll talk about my cup of coffee to date. And they said, we love that idea. And before I even made my appearance, they asked me to co-host the show because they thought I would be able to contribute more on independence than they could since they were new to the independent professional wrestling. I accepted, and we have been going strong about 8 years now.
Wow. So you guys have been around for a hot minute, I would say. So then what is it like getting to work on this? Because, I mean, I feel like that's something, you and I can definitely, see eye to eye on, is that, working for a podcast, I definitely never saw myself going and working for a podcast. I had tried to do podcasts before Dave Dynasty Show, but having a podcast reach a certain level of success and being able to do that is quite interesting. So what were your thoughts when you were like starting to do the podcast and starting to get that going?
It was interesting. When I got into it, I didn't really know what to expect or how it worked. JD was really helpful in the beginning. He ran things. He was around for probably a year before he decided to step away. And it was myself, QT, and our other co-host, Dimitri, who stepped in, doing things. I book probably 95% of the guests, and we're pretty fortunate. We've had a lot of great guests. One of the first people I personally booked, I believe it was the first person, was Jason Ayers, who I knew from his very first show at HPW when he was 16 years old, refereeing his first card. And at that point, when he came on the show for the first time, he was with Dragon Gate USA. He had just left Ring of Honor, and he was still a little bit away from being signed from the Independence by WWE. But he did the show 2 or 3 times before he got a hold of him.
Absolutely. So, with a podcast, with talking to people and getting them on the show and going through that process, getting to know these different people, you hear some pretty great stories. On your podcast, we had talked about probably, who's the favorite person you've ever talked to, who's the weirdest person. So kind of similar to that, who was one of your favorite interviews to date?
It sounds like a cop-out, but I'm going to say every one of them because really they're all so different.
Wow.
And all of them are usually unique in some form or fashion. We have had a lot of people have their very first interview on our show over the years. I'd say at least 24 people have had their very first interview ever with us. And some of them went on to become very well known. So that's really great. I mean, some people have been legendary performers that took time to come on the show. Guys like Kevin Sullivan, Doug Gilbert, Sir Oliver Humperdinck, who passed away a year or two after he did our show. Actually called from a Twins game. He got tickets to go to a Twins game And I told him we would reschedule if he liked, but he said, no, I made the commitment, and he did the interview from the stadium rather than sit there and enjoy the game. So, that was a big thing. Just so many people on the independents that I probably would have never learned about or talked to, and now they've been on the show, and we dealt with them, so forth, so on, learn more about not only them, but their area and where they come from. We luckily have been fortunate enough to have interviewed at least one person representing every state in the union, which I think is probably our most accomplished statistic.
Wow. So that's pretty awesome, though. I mean, not only that, but your answer is very good, very very well worded. And I as well was one of the they were my first interview as well, so definitely that's I'm happy to be a part of that group of people who got their first interviews on Turnbuckle Turmoil. But it's pretty awesome though. But let me ask you then, because almost all the interviews were great, but I'm sure there's got to be at least one interview that you've probably started like, I'm not so sure about this one. So who is probably the quirkiest guest you've ever had on your show?
Shockwave the Robot, hands down.
Shockwave the Robot. Now, let me ask you, is it an actual robot?
He's not a literal robot, but he dresses like one. If you're not familiar with Shockwave, and Dave might have come across him a couple of times, I'm not sure, but he's a very odd individual. And when he does the podcast, he has this gimmick that he uses to give the robotic voice for him. So he wants the questions in advance so he can match up his gimmick so the answers will come out in the robot voice. I said, all right. So I sent the questions. I let QT know. I figured QT's going to mess this up. I just know it. I let Dimitri, Dimitri will probably have it. Dimitri didn't see the message before he called into the show, and so he starts throwing out questions that aren't on the list, and it's not matching with what Shockwave had. And so Dimitri would ask a question. Shockwave would give an answer to a question that was like 3 questions prior, and then he would eventually answer Dimitri, but it'd be like several minutes later. So it was just continual discombobulation and a huge mess.
That is something. I'm gonna have to tell Dave to get him on the show or something, because that sounds like a lot of fun.
He does wrestle in the Midwest quite a bit. I know Troy Miller's had multiple matches with him.
Okay. Oh, right on. So yeah, we've had Troy on the show, so probably have to tell Dave, hey, ask him about this and that, and see if we can't get that set up, because I feel like that'd be an interesting interview. I feel like that would be something I can mark off my bucket list.
I think that would be a great Dave Dynasty show, and imagine the joy on the fans if the Manser and Shockwave were to interact.
That might overload old Manser, but I feel like that would be a fantastic. I feel like that would need to be like a face-to-face interview, because I feel like old Manser would have some really great facial expressions.
No doubt.
So, we've talked a lot about your progression as a wrestler or as an entertainer, both including in-ring as well as out of ring in terms of, Turnbuckle Turmoil. But let's kind of, let's look at who you are today in terms of a wrestling fan. So obviously you probably still watch wrestling. If you watch a podcast, you probably have to keep up with wrestling. So right now, what are your thoughts and opinions on the modern style of professional wrestling and the modern scene, I should say?
I think independent wrestling is probably healthier now than it's ever been. I look at the number of people now on the independents that can do wrestling full time without having a secondary job. And I've never seen that many people in the industry use independent wrestling as their main profession, and in a lot of cases their only profession, than I have in the last couple of years. I see crowds rising and rising. One of my home promotions in Oregon, Blue Collar Wrestling, had an pay-per-view about a month ago. They drew close to 350 people, which I think was one of their largest crowds, if not the largest in company history. Defy Wrestling doing huge numbers. We have WUW in Bremerton, Washington, that is a growing company. They recently changed their name from SCW. PWF in Bremerton, Washington as well, a young company, but they're growing and bringing in great talent from all over. I see it really healthy here. I know in Indianapolis, WCWO has grown huge, and every time I go back there and perform there at the Outlaw Arena, I see that they get more and more and more of the future of the business to come through the door. There's such great talent there, and the crowds are growing each week. And you got Circle City Wrestling there. You've got Strong Style Wrestling. HPW continues to do great business. Emerge does great business. There's just so many great promotions all across the country. There's a company I sometimes visit in Idaho that is connected to a different charity every show, and they wrestle in part for charity every time they go out there. They're a growing company. They started from scratch, and now they're on mainstream television there in Idaho. So I see independent wrestling as a very healthy business right now.
Absolutely. It definitely is. I feel, you look at past years, and I feel like independent wrestling has gotten, it's off the charts now, and it's pretty incredible. But that's a good answer. I like to hear that. A lot of times when I interview people, they're like, yeah, I'm not a fan of that current wrestling, which is unfortunate, but, it's one of those things, especially when you talk to people who originally were in the business, who no longer really do wrestling anymore. They're not a huge fan of current wrestling, if you will.
The thing of it is a generational thing. If you got a guy that's been around for 15 or 20 years, a lot of times they're going to like the style of wrestling from when they started watching as a fan or from when they first broke into the business. And wrestling's an evolutionary type of business, and when it evolves, they don't necessarily like the evolutionary part of it, so they're not going to like the same style as a guy that's just getting started or a guy that started watching 10 or 15 years after they started watching. That's just human nature. It's not really so much a wrestling thing as a human nature thing. People don't really like to see their first memories tarnished, and that's essentially what happens.
No, absolutely. Like you said, it's a generation thing where, people essentially they say, yeah, this is how they did it back in my day, and I feel like that's pretty applicable across all platforms, across all things. So that's a good point.
There's a lot of basketball fans that
Right.
They don't like the fast-paced game. They like the old set shot from 10 feet away, and they don't understand why you have to have a shot clock and why people have to dunk. But that's the evolution of that sport. In baseball, a lot of people don't like the rules to protect players, safety and everything, but it's an evolution. The players are going to have longer careers. They're going to be safer. But because people didn't grow up with these rules in place, they don't necessarily like that they have the rules in place now.
No, absolutely. I agree. I was actually going to give that example. In baseball, they didn't used to have the helmets, and that used to not be regulation. So a lot of people were a little upset about that. But yeah, that's a really good example of that. So, I mean, as a whole, though, I mean, the wrestling culture now, like you said, it's very positive. It's very uplifting. It's, at Dave Dynasty, we have, the saying, let's put positivity back in wrestling. And I feel like, as a whole, we're, professional wrestling is, getting more, better and better. It's not as toxic as it has been before. But I guess one of the last questions, to kind of go over with you, right now, with so many people in the scene, do you have any, do you see anybody coming up in the ranks, any, young talents that you think are going to be really big one day?
Dozens and dozens and dozens from across the country. I see so many. Just dealing with guys on turnbuckle, going to shows all across the country. I mean, I've been lucky. I've gone to Alaska, all over Washington, all over Oregon, Indiana, Kentucky, North Carolina. I was just in Louisiana for WrestleMania week. I got to see a lot of people there. I attended a WWN seminar, saw a lot of the young talent that were trying out for them. But to name a few people, Dylan Bostic, who's going to be 18 years old for his entire life probably, could be a huge star. Ace Perry's going to be a huge star. Jonathan Wolf and Sean Kemp, I've been on their bandwagon since day one, two of the most favorite opponents I've ever had. And I can't wait to the day when they get on television. I used to work with those guys. Be like, shut up, you never worked with them. But I got the video, so I can prove it. Out here, there's a kid named Kane Jaden, who's second generation. He's going to be a big, big star in a few years, I think. You got Dominic Hess, who's second generation out here. I think he's got potential. You got so many guys. There's a tag team called the Contract Kilters, and if someone from a national company ever saw what they do, I think they would really love the gimmick and give them a chance. So there's a lot of great talent out in Idaho. King Marcus Anderson is someone I think has more than good potential to get to WWE. I think he'll make it. He's already been to Japan on an independent tour, got to train a little bit with the New Japan dojo, and I think he's going to make big strides in the next couple of years. There's a kid out there called The Doric who is, I believe, 18 years of age right now. He's unbelievably good. Just so many great pieces of talent out there. I mean, out in your area, Myron Reed is really, really good.
Oh, yeah.
Paul Radrick is really, really good. Just so many great talents.
Yeah,
and I'd be remiss if I didn't say Totelli and Kinsey, because Totelli and Kinsey are huge stars out there as well.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of these people I've gotten the pleasure to either see wrestle or talk to, and I would definitely agree. You've named a lot of really fantastic talent. I think that all of them will hopefully, see their dreams come true in the, professional wrestling industry. So, but
absolutely. I mean, look at Jonathan and Sean. They were 13 and 14, I think, when they started. So
yeah,
at this point, they have over 5 years of experience. They're just now at the age where a lot of people will think about maybe training. Think where they're going to be 5 years from now at that young age. They're going to be so far advanced from everybody. And you take away the in-ring aspect of it, don't even look at what they do as far as wrestling itself. Two of the most professional kids I have ever met.
Absolutely. And and that's, I think that, because, like I said, I've talked to actually both of them, and they're very much, I would almost say they're almost old school mentality, and I think that obviously has to partially do with, both of them have dads that used to do the wrestling gig, and I believe, one of them still does. So it's like, I feel like they have a very good predisposition to the business, and I feel like they're going to explode. They're just going to be fantastic. I mean, they already are exploding, but I feel like it's going to get even better from here.
Oh, absolutely. I've wrestled them multiple times. Great talents. I'd still say one of my favorite matches I've ever had was with Sean Kemp, and I broke my leg in that match. Still loved it.
So you broke your leg in a match with Sean Kemp. How did that happen?
There was a spine buster that went really wiggy, and he came down across my ankle with his knee somehow, and I had a bad ankle for years, and it just exploded. But just a freak accident was all, but I still won the match.
Broken ankle and everything, you still got it.
I still got the W, baby.
That's all matters right there. That's all that matters. Oh man. So wow. So I mean, we've gotten to talk a lot about everything. Everything from good places to what the best food is and in your area to your fantastic podcast that is quite wonderful, very unique. I'll give you that. So as a close out here, if you had to, because this is one of the questions that I really like that you asked me, and I feel like I really want to know your answer because I feel like it's going to be pretty unique. But you had asked me, who would my dream interview be? And I feel like as a fellow person on the podcast scene, I feel like that's a good question for you that I don't know about you. So who would your dream interview be?
As it stands today, I'm Man Swarner and Man Bun away from having the Dave Dynasty complete set on turnbuckle.
That's
so it's
true.
got to be Manser and Man Bun for sure.
Well, you know what? If you guys are listening, Mance, referee Man Bun, you guys know that turnbuckle turmoil is coming for you. So let's keep an eye open for that. But that's a good answer though. You're two shots away from a full set. So hopefully we can get down there and you can put out like a special here's the quadrilogy of the Dave Dynasty crew.
Absolutely. We had Dr. Jerry Graham a few years ago. I think we might have been one of his first podcasts.
Oh, wow.
He didn't do very many at that point. And then recently, after years of trying, we finally got Dave Dynasty. And then, as you know, recently we had you. So we're just 2 away.
2 away. So wait, that would be 5. What is the because it's a trilogy, quadrilogy. What's 5?
I believe it is a quintilogy.
A quintilogy. So then you would have the full quintilogy. That took a lot more brain power I should have for me to figure out what that meant. But so at this point, I just want to open it up to you. I want you to go ahead and I want you to throw out all the social medias that you can possibly muster. Throw out any shameless self-promotions you can because they need to hear it. The fans need it.
Absolutely. So if you want to hit me on the social medias, go to the facebook.com/SignG1. You can find me there. Instagram, I'm TheSignGuy77. YouTube, also TheSignGuy77. You can find matches there. You can find my fairly tolerable web show, The Sign of the Times, which has gone 323 episodes as of right now. Lots of guest appearances over the years. On the Twitter, you can follow me, but not literally, at SignGuyHBW. And if you're looking for me so you can watch me perform and or buy my T-shirt, which is a steal at a mere $20, you can find me this coming Saturday for WUW in Bremerton, Washington. Kevin Sullivan will be on the card this coming Saturday. And then the following week on that Saturday, I will be back at WUW on Saturday. I believe Kevin Sullivan also hitting that one. The next day, I will be in Portland, Oregon for Blue Collar Wrestling. On the 12th of May, I will be in Seattle, just a few exits down from me at CPW. That will be held at the Evolve Fitness. Then on probably that Sunday as well, I'll be back at Blue Collar Wrestling. I'm there, more often than not. Every Sunday we wrestle at 7611 North Exeter in Portland. And then on the 26th of May, brand new venue for the PWF there at the Bremerton Eagles Lodge. We just left the location. This is a new location for us, so make sure you go to the Bremerton Eagles to find PWF. If you're looking way down the line, in June, I have a double shot coming up. I believe that's on the 26th of June. I will be at an outdoor show in the Georgetown area. It's an annual show held at a local brewery. Kevin Sullivan almost killed a man the last time, so you'll definitely want to check that out. And then later that night, I will be back at my home promotion in Seattle, Project 42. That one is held at El Corazon nightclub in downtown Seattle. And looking farther down the road, the first Saturday of November is the HPW 20th anniversary show. I've been booked on that for a year. So I'm definitely going to be there. And usually the Saturday before the HPW anniversary show, you can find me at 1151 South Kentucky Avenue, which is the Outlaw Arena, and the only address I can remember when I have multiple brain injuries.
Wow, that was a lot. And of course, I honestly, there's so much. I'm trying to absorb it all. Did you say something about Turnbuckle Turmoil where they can follow that?
I did not, but thanks. I can also tell you that you can listen to me every week on Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 over there in the East Coast. You can listen to us. And then on Sundays, we're back on Sundays as well. You can listen to us at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. over on the East Coast. This coming Friday, we have a guy by the name of Levi Blue on the show, so that should be interesting. He is coming back from retirement, apparently, first time with us. And then on Sunday afternoon this week, we will have Milo Beasley. And if you're not familiar with him, he has a web show he does. It's absolute gold. He wrestles down in the Florida area, so he's a great talent as well. So we got good times. And if you're a fan of Star Wars, on May 4th, Star Wars Day, we have sports entertainers discussing Star Wars. We got sports entertainers from all over the country coming together to discuss various aspects of the Star Wars franchise.
Wow. That'll be something. I love Star Wars, so probably gonna have to tune into that one. So you guys have so much work to do. So Dave Dynasty fans, Dave Dynasty crew, go out there, follow the social medias, check him out on his podcast, do it all because it is fantastic stuff. You can go even hear me and Dave Dynasty on their show. It is fantastic. You won't regret it. But I want to thank you very much for coming on today. You know, I know we've been trying to get you on here for a while, and, you know, we had to schedule this a little bit unique, so I do appreciate you calling. Well, it's probably, right now, like 10 o'clock your time?
Yeah, just about.
Yep, about 1 a.m. my time, so I think Old Man Isaac is about to get ready for bed. So thank you so much, Sound Guy, for coming on here, chatting with us, talking about everything from... I mean, you're just going to have to listen to it. We talked about so much, but thank you again. It's been a legitimate pleasure. I'm so happy to be able to return the favor in terms of interviews. Can't wait to hear the final of this, but it's been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you giving us the time tonight.
It was absolutely my pleasure. I enjoy the Dave Dynasty greatly. We usually listen to it on the way down to Portland, sometimes on the way back up from Portland. So we're definitely fans of it here on Turnbuckle as well.
Absolutely. Well, we're glad to hear that. But everybody, you heard it here. They're fans, so that means you need to be fans of them. I think that's just how it works. So go follow them, and as always, support independent wrestling. Go watch an independent show this weekend. You won't regret it.
Whatever happened to you?
And we're back with Whatever Happened To, the segment where we catch up on some often overlooked names from Midwest Wrestling's past. I am Mike Isaacs, and today we're chatting none other than Quicksilver. How are we doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Fun fact about today's interview, my Skype likes to update in the middle of conversations, so this one's a special one, guys. No, I kid. But we're just going to jump right into it. So tell us, how did you get started in wrestling, and when did you get started?
Well, back in the late 70s, early 80s, I loved wrestling from when I was a kid, and I went to one of the Dick the Bruiser shows, and while I was there, they also had a Fans in the Stand to Wrestle Wojo.
Okay.
And so that's where it all started. I got in there, got my butt whipped, but Dick the Bruiser liked the style that I did and asked me if I would like to train with him personally, and so I did. And so I got to train the hard style wrestling. I'm talking no wrestling ring. We trained on concrete.
Oh, so this is like you're going to get some bumps and bruises, and you're going to feel it in the morning type wrestling.
Absolutely. One of his best phrases was, "If you can't handle the body slam on a concrete, don't even try to become a professional wrestler." So after about a month of nothing but bruises, then I was good to go.
Hey, that's what we like to hear. A little bruised up, but hey, that ain't no problem. And obviously it wasn't a problem for you. You wrestled for quite a while, so tell us what it was like with that training and moving on into the wrestling world. What was your first match like, I should say?
Well, my first match was against a wrestler by the name of Handsome Johnny Starr.
Okay. Yeah.
And it went for about 10 minutes. He started whipping my butt again, and then a guy by the name of Spike Huber came to my aid and helped me win my first match.
Okay, very cool. So that might have been pretty cool. I think we've actually talked to Johnny Starr before. He's a pretty cool guy. He's pretty interesting. So what was it like getting to work with him and Spike? Tell us about that.
It was great. I tell you, all these younger wrestlers that is training now, they don't know how lucky they have it, because they start out in a ring, and like I said, I didn't, and they walked me through it. I was very at ease when I was wrestling them, knowing that they was not going to actually kill me. They were going to hurt me, but not kill me. Right. So that was a good thing. They watched what I did, and they decided, hey, this guy can wrestle. Let's put him in some other matches. And so then I got to do my first battle royal with them. And that's with 20 other wrestlers. So then I got my take of being thrown over the top rope.
Oh wow! So how was that?
Well, the guy that threw me over the top rope, I cannot remember his name. He was a big guy, wrestled for Bruiser, and he basically picked me up and just launched me, but he made sure that, I was going to land properly and not hurt myself.
That's good. That's good. At least he was a little considerate before, chucking you over the ropes.
Exactly. So, but the best part of my wrestling career was I got to meet a lot of famous people. Hulk Hogan, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. In fact, I got to wrestle Hacksaw and the Honky Tonk Man.
Oh wow! So those are some pretty big names, I'd say.
Yep, absolutely. And so I wrestled the Honky Tonk, and then throughout the years, I did have some injuries. I've had a couple of knee surgeries and a couple of rotor cuff surgeries. But other than that, that was about it.
So isn't that pretty much a clean bill of health?
Yeah, and then, I've been wrestling 25 plus years before I retired, and I've never broken a bone, until they asked me to be a special referee at an Indianapolis show, and I got my nose broken, and I wasn't even wrestling. So go figure that one.
Right. But the one time you don't wrestle, you get in, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so throughout the career, then I met Diamond Dan, and him and I clicked pretty well, and we decided to run a tag team as Fire and I. And him and I went on and won the tag team championship, so that was pretty cool.
So it looks like a pretty, I mean, obviously we've just kind of surfaced, but from what I've done so far, it's like he had a pretty interesting career. Diamond Dan, he's a friend of the show, and he's a pretty cool guy. He's always got 1 billion and one stories. But what was it like working with Diamond Dan?
Diamond Dan's great. We've had some good time. Him and I traveled many miles together. We went down to Memphis, Tennessee, to wrestle for Jerry the King Lawler. And so we had a pretty good time doing that. So we got to meet a lot of different wrestlers, and was able to feel how that organization was ran. So a lot of organizations, they all ran differently.
No, absolutely. And that was one of the good things about the territory days. It was different where you went.
Absolutely. And so throughout my career, I was, like I said, Diamond Dan and I, was tag team. We wrestled tag team. Probably a good 8 years we was together. And then I got a big head on my shoulder and decided to turn against Diamond Dan. And so then we started having matches against him and I together. And so that wasn't fun. But, we went back and forth, and now Diamond Dan and I were real good friends, and had a good journey together.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, he's a pretty cool guy. I remember him telling stories about the old Quicksilver days. I remember those stories from that podcast. It was a lot of fun. It's cool getting to see each side of that. So then let me ask you, though. I mean, we've talked a little bit about some of the places you've worked, how you kind of got into the business, and some of the different people you've gotten to work with. But let me ask you. I mean, something I love to ask is that you got to experience a very unique era of wrestling. So when you compare it to the current era of wrestling, what are some of the major things that you see different?
What I see different nowadays is it's more drama, should I say? I don't know if that's a good word. It's more entertaining show type. The wrestling now is very colorful. Back in the day, we used to not even come out to music, and so that is a lot different. The fans seems to enjoy the music, and so that's when they started. A lot of the wrestlers started coming out to music, and I went with the flow, and it was pretty cool. Got to work the crowd a little bit, and the best thing was when I would go out there to some of the songs that was pretty nice hits, and people just loved us.
Good, some bad things, types of wrestling that we had back then we have now. Do you have like a type of wrestling that you prefer, or do you still watch wrestling?
I do still watch wrestling. I watch it differently than what the fans does. I watch wrestling and how they work the crowd, how they do the holds on each other, and the way that they run. A lot of things that I see a wrestling match, and it's more eye contact. And so I can almost look at a match and tell you what they're going to do. But, back in the day, it was all eye contact. Yeah. Never no talking. We was always in there, and just say we look. If he moves at me a certain way, I know what kind of move I can do on him.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely, I've heard that too. That it's it's a lot different now. They have a lot, ways of getting getting what they want across. I've definitely heard that.
Yes, exactly. And but wrestling is one of those. Now, it took a lot of frustration. If I was frustrated, I can relieve all that in the ring.
Yeah.
And that's what I enjoyed about it the most. And then, of course, my grandkids, they see old tapes of me, and so when I'm dead and gone, I'm going to have something to watch the rest of their lives. So.
Oh, absolutely. So then, we've talked a little bit, about, like we said, your career, a little bit about some of your favorite matches and such, and talked a little bit about the differences between wrestling back then and now. But, like we talked about as well, you did retire from the sport. But something I feel like always comes about is when I talk to the people is that, a lot of people say you never really retire from wrestling. You stop wrestling momentarily. Do you feel do you feel that you are like really retired, or do you always have that itching that, I would love to get back on the ring?
And I tell you, I always have that itching, and I on the record that my grandson is also training in wrestling, and he's at a little promotion. That's how you start out, is start with your low promotions and you work your way up. And so I got the opportunity. They was running a show in Greenfield, Indiana, and I got the opportunity to be in his corner that night. And so I think I made him more at ease by me being there, and so that made it pretty special.
Oh, absolutely. And like we said, you never really retired from wrestling. It's always in the back of your head a little bit.
Absolutely.
Do you think you would ever go back into in-ring action beyond what you've already done?
No, and I'll tell you why. I've had a lot of knee surgery, and I'm not a spring chicken anymore. So I get in there and I'm like, oh my God, I used to do this, but there's no way I can do it now. So, but it's fun watching my grandson learn the business, and then I give points on what he did wrong. So I would probably never go back to wrestling, but then again, I would go if there's a local show. I would probably be there.
No, absolutely. So, along kind of the same lines, we talk a lot about the matches and the learning styles and the different techniques, but and we kind of also talked about how wrestling never really goes away once you've done it. So, looking back at your career, some of the things that you miss most about wrestling.
What I miss most is meeting different people, meeting different type of technique of wrestling. There's times where I'll get into have to wrestle somebody that I've never met before, and their technique is 10 times different than what I'm used to. And so there's where I put the old school back to action, and we do a lot of old dual wrestling.
Absolutely. And, that's what I hear a lot too, is that the fact that you guys get in the ring and learn something new every time you get in the ring, that ability is so missed. I remember I talked to somebody a while back, and they said something similar. You don't get to get in the ring anymore. You don't get to get the feeling of wrestling with someone new. That's that new feeling goes away because you can't do it anymore, or you don't do it anymore.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. And but I've still got the fire, and I imagine myself. Oh yeah, I can still get in there and compete with some of the best, but I don't think I can. So. It's one of those that, but I do miss the business, and it's made me out to be a better person, treating other people. So that was the best thing that I can say. The wrestlers, a lot of the wrestlers, they look mean, but deep down they got a great heart, and they're out to entertain the people.
Oh, absolutely. I hear that all the time. It's like, it's a character, it's a real person thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, the character means a lot in wrestling. If you have a great character and people wants to pay the money, that's when your career is going to take off for you. With me and Dan, they love Fire and Ice. I was more the hot-headed person, and Diamond Dan was more the cool, calm, collected person that kept me in order, throughout our match.
Oh, absolutely. So and let me ask you this too: is we've talked a little bit, obviously talked about working the Bruiser era because that's who you really got trained with, but you have all these other promotions, and you talk about going down to Memphis and all of that. But something I always like to ask people is that during this time period, I imagine this is probably because I assume that you got to see the end of the end of the what's the word I'm looking for? You did get to see the end of the territories, right? You got to do that.
Yeah.
So
I did.
So did you ever get invited to wrestle for like WCW or WWE, or did you ever get to wrestle there?
I did. Towards the last probably 10 years of my career, I got the fortune of Hustler Rip Rogers invited me to go do a show WCW down in Atlanta, Georgia. And so him and I, we hopped into a car, drove, did the show. That was one of the best experiences of my life. Sting and a lot of the other Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, wow. So
and in WWE, I did a lot of dark matches, which is a dark match means that they didn't televise it, but I was able to wrestle and get the fans going at TV time. And then I was able to go to Ontario, Canada to wrestle for WWE. And that was back in the Jimmy Superfly Snuka days.
Okay, right on. So, and it's funny, you mentioned Rip Rogers. I think I've talked to a few people, and anytime I ask that question, they're always like, yeah, Rip Rogers. And I'm like, oh, okay. I see a common theme.
Yeah, Rip is a whole another story. We can tell stories all day long about Rip, and he's a good guy, but let me tell you, he's very he loves wrestling, and if you do anything to mess that up, he'll sure let you know it.
Absolutely. Well, let me ask, do you have any good Rip Rogers stories?
Well, I don't know if I could say it on the air. I got a few where Rip is one of those types, like the Atlanta, Georgia, when we was heading that way. He drove, and we would stop and get some gas. And anyway, if you are not back in the car by the time he's done fueling and getting him something to drink, if you're not back in the car, he will leave you. Another rider with us decided he was going to get him some snacks and just kind of take his time. Drove about 3 blocks, leaving that guy behind, and then Rip turned around just to prove a point that, hey, you're not in this car, you will leave. Because, we have to be in Georgia at a certain time, and Rip's pretty good about the time.
He seems pretty punctual, and our story doesn't surprise me at all. That's hilarious.
Yeah, Rip's one of those. He's a good guy, but like I said, he's very punctual, and we will. In fact, it's been a little bit since I talked to Rip. Maybe about 6 months ago, I got the opportunity to speak with him over the phone, and sounds same old Rip, and will never change.
Probably not, and hopefully that's the best, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, and that's another thing, too. That's a huge part of wrestling is the traveling aspect. And I'm sure you got to travel all over the United States. What were some of the favorite places?
My favorite one is actually Saskatchewan, Canada. It was pretty good. I got to, I don't know if people remembers Calypso Jim that used to wrestle for Dick Bruiser. He's Bobo Brazil Jr., and him and I we'd take the ring down, and so we got to be there before anybody because we had to make sure that ring got to the arena.
Very cool. And then, was there anything specific about Canada that really impressed you?
Well, it was, for one, for wrestling, I've never been out of the country, and I thought it was pretty cool. We had to go through the customs and for the ring, and I mean they was making sure it was legit, and it was kind of nervous, but yet it was pretty much pretty cool the way you got to do that. So.
Absolutely, I've never been to Canada. I've always wanted to go. I hear Tim Hortons is really good.
Yeah.
Oh,
but as far as the traveling part of it, I do a lot of traveling. There's times where we would have a show in Chicago and be in Wisconsin by the next day. So as soon as that show's over, we're in the car and traveling to Wisconsin and then getting a hotel room, relaxing before the show for that night. So it was pretty busy.
Oh, absolutely. That's the wrestling lifestyle. Everyone I talk to, they're always like, "Yep, on the road 24/7."
Yes, and it does get pretty lonely. Like my first wife, she used to handle it, so she decided, we had and so that's the only aspect of it. You needed to, if wrestling is what you're choosing, then make sure that your spouse, like the wife I had now, she rode with me 80% of the time.
Absolutely. And that's actually, unfortunately, that's one of the things I hear a lot is, people split up because, the other spouse isn't really cared for the amount of separation that comes with, wrestling and traveling. It's unfortunate, but it's super common. I mean,
yeah, and if you want to hear another story, the time that I was wrestling out of state before I did get divorced, the hotel phone rang, and that was before the cell phones and all that, and the hotel phone rang, which was my wife then, and decided he was going to answer the phone as a female.
Oh my God.
And yeah, so that didn't go off too well. So it was pretty funny though after I think about it that's like that. So
and I bet she was not happy about that.
Yeah, I think that was what cut the made the marriage stop working.
Oh gosh. Like that, it's fun to laugh at it now, but I'm sure it was probably one of those things you're saying during the moment.
Yeah. I was like, I can't believe you did that. And he would just look at me and say, it's a rib. So
you're just like, I don't think she got that though. I don't think she knew it was a rib.
Diamond Dad probably has a lot of stories to tell about me, but we won't go that route yet.
Right. Oh gosh. So let me ask you though. I mean, we've talked a lot about everything that's kind of happened prior to now. How you got trained, your first matches, kind of leading up to you getting, eventually retiring. But what is Quicksilver up to now these days? Like, what is it that you keep yourself busy with?
Well, I'm still married. I've been married for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And I've got 11 grandkids. And I'm working a little bit for Lowe's. I was a manager over their delivery department, and so I'm keeping myself busy, with the wife, the grandkids, and my job. Got to do something to stay busy, and then some of my weekends, I go watch my grandson wrestle a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I just gotta live life every day, right? Family's everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. You got a big old family too, which that's awesome. Though, with all things, of course, if you don't mind me asking, because I'm interested now. What's your grandson's in-ring name, so I can look him up?
Yeah, it's he's wrestling as Too Sexy Marshall. So he, like I said, he's doing that, which is my son. Mm-hmm. All his life, he's wanted me to train him to wrestle, and I didn't do it. I always tell him, son, you don't need this. It is a hard way to go. And so now he is an official referee now. So he gets to referee his son's matches a lot. So that makes it even better.
No, absolutely. So you guys heard it here. Go check him out. If he's related to Quicksilver, I'm sure he's fantastic. If Quicksilver's over there giving tips and pointers, it's got to be great.
Yeah, and he's got a long ways to go, but you know what? Whether he's only been in it less than a year, if he keeps it up, he'll be one to he'll be great to watch. And like I said, my son, he's refereeing, so he also watches over him. So I think everything will go pretty good.
Absolutely. Well, kind of one of the final things, in the wonderful age of social media and the internet, way for fans to follow you, keep up with your day-to-day, and maybe see if you're going into any shows, social media, Facebook.
Yeah, I personally do not have one. I'm still good friends with Diamond Dan. They can do a lot of things that, in fact, I just had to celebrate my 69th birthday, and Diamond Dan put that on the web. And then my son, he posts a lot of things, but unfortunately, I've not got through the Facebook thing yet. So my wife does a lot of Facebook, but I just never did take the likings to it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, so then we have some ulterior ways to get to you. Go check out Dan Garza. Check him out. He posts a lot. He's really tech savvy. And it's awesome. So go check out Diamond Dan. You'll be able to follow him there. And also, and pardon me if I butcher this, so that it's too sexy. You said Marshall Goldsby, right? Is your grandson's working name?
Yeah.
So Google him, keep an eye out for him for shows. Like we said, he's got it, so he's probably working real hard. So, but all right, Quicksilver. All right, what I say, Keith. Real name Keith.
Yeah. Yes, dude.
Thank you so much for coming on here and chatting with us and just giving us some time to go over some things and talk about your wrestling past, and obviously we didn't touch on everything, so we'll probably have to come back on here and do a longer episode with a lot more stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Just let me know, and we'll keep in touch, and still remember me, and I think they still do me. If they wanted to, they could see some of the old matches that I've done.
Absolutely. You can Google him, by the way. I've done it. I Google everybody. Yeah. And you can not only see old picture stuff, but there's all kinds of those. YouTube is fantastic. But, oh, man. So you guys heard it here. You heard legend. We'll obviously have to come back on here and have him tell more stories. But until then, call Dan Garza because he's like a way to get to Quicksilver.
You've heard him here on the Dave Dynasty Show as a guest and as host of the monthly Graham's Gallery episodes. And now you can hear his stories. You can own a copy of Confessions of a Big-Time Wrestler, the audio book from Dr. Jerry Graham Jr., former multi-tag team champion in WWA and owner of Bruiser Bedlam. You can hear all of his encounters with the various wrestlers, places, and promotions he's worked as he tells about his colorful, long, and illustrious career. You can have your own copy for only $25, and that includes shipping and handling. It's very simple. Go on Facebook, look up Jerry Jaffe, Jaffe, send him a private message, and make arrangements to purchase a copy of Confessions of a Big-Time Wrestler now. You will not regret this purchase. And welcome back to the Dave Dynasty Show. Once again, I am Dave Dynasty. In case you couldn't put two and two together and get that yourself, but here I am. Thank you to Sign Guy and Quicksilver for coming on the show today. Thank you to Ike Isaacs for conducting those interviews as always. Great job there. Next week we got a couple cool interviews as well. We've got Tyler High Flyer Robinson, an Ohio native and a wrestler from that area who is very, very talented. I'd seen clips, I haven't seen him online, heard about him a little bit. Finally got to see him in person when we went to the Bobby Fulton retirement show at Circleville a couple weeks ago. Was fun seeing him. Great match, great performer, got a bright future in the business. So once I saw that, hey, Tyler's the real deal, man. We locked up an interview and got it in the books. He'll be on next week with that interview. And, we have Whatever Happened To with another old buddy of mine, Mr. Brad Lehman. Another guy I know from the beginning of my days, he was just starting in the business, so both started a little before me. We worked a lot of the same shows, a lot of the same areas. when I ran some shows myself, a few years after hanging it up, or shortly after hanging it up, Brad was one of my premier, my top talents that I used. He was a very, very talented guy, and plus a Marine. He served our country. Thanks to him for that. But we talked to him, catch up with him. He's always entertaining, always fun to talk to. He's a fun guy, great guy. So he'll be on with the Whatever Happened to next week. So you want to make sure you do not miss that. And hey, however you do catch us, whether it be on YouTube or SoundCloud, iTunes, any of the other podcast every week. People, if you listen to my show, you know every week I have trouble saying podcast platforms. It is like my kryptonite, I swear. Whatever podcast platform you listen to us on, please make sure you subscribe to us there and go on, particularly like on iTunes, and give us a rating and review. That helps us get some exposure in their algorithms, or I don't understand the Appleverse and what they do, but it does help us, right? It helps us exposure. It helps people when they search for us and when they look for these things. But make sure you do subscribe, follow, rate, review, do all that stuff. When we post a new episode, when we put up fun stuff on Twitter and on Facebook and all these other things, make sure you like it. Make sure you share it or retweet it. Make sure you comment. We like discussion, man. I like feedback. I like to talk to people. Don't be afraid to message me. I don't care what it's about. You know, well, I do care what it's about. Let me take that back. But if you got something you always want to know, or a topic you want to discuss, shoot it to me, right? If you got some cool pointy discussion that's in relation to Midwest wrestling that you've always wondered, what if this happened, or what if this didn't happen, or what would you think of this? Some of those theoretical type situations. Give me a holler. I'll discuss it on the show if I like it, if I got an opinion on it. I'm always looking for stuff to chat it up about. And who knows, man, if we hit it off and things go well and I like that, maybe I'll bring you on and we'll chat about it together. I'm going to do that with a few guys, I think, in the future. Bring guys on for the opening bits, hey, you know what? Let's talk about it. And let's have some discussion, right? I'm ready to bring in some guys from the Midwest Express, that universe, and Midwest wrestling fans, and let them talk a little with me, and let's just chat it up, man. Let's talk about wrestling. Only ground rule is, as always on this show, man, you got to keep it positive, right? We block out the negative. We just don't let the negative in our universe, right? We know there's negative out there. We don't deny there's negative out there. We just don't want any part of it. It's not what we do. It's not who we are. So you got to have that same mindset. So anyway, like I said, give us feedback, give us some communication. We love that stuff. So, you can, hit me up again on Twitter at the Dave Dynasty, or you can look me up on Facebook. It's just look up Dave Dynasty. You can also, hit up Ike. Ike's on Twitter. So look him up at Pint Sized Beast. He's not super active on there, but I'll give him a push and a nudge to get on there. So, like I said, we like to talk to the listeners and fans and other wrestling fans out there. Always fun stuff. So make sure you hit us up. And if you want to help out the show, right? This is a free show. We bring it to you. Well, in theory, we bring it to you every week, except when, things flare up, my neck flares up and so have you. But, in theory, we bring it to you every week. We bring you, some great interviews, with past, present, and future stars. We look back at the Whatever Happened To's and find these guys that maybe you forgot about, and we talk to them a little bit. Bring you lots of cool stuff on social media and online. Lots of classic wrestling that I'm putting up there. You know what? A lot of the stuff I'm buying, I'm finding stuff on eBay and different places, and I'm paying for, shipping and costs and things on this, trying to do research and trying to bring this history to the forefront and get it out there for you to share it and get some eyes here on the Midwest. So, and we bring it all to you for free, right? We don't have subscriptions, or we don't do this and blah, 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 and all that good stuff. So, whatever, you do, help us out, support us. A little generosity goes a long, long way for us. You may think that, hey, if I pitch a couple bucks, it's not going to make a difference. It does make a difference. It does on our end. We do have some costs that we accrue with the show that, we like to have covered, right? We like to, I'm not looking to make a killing, but, it's cool to make a few bucks to help, defer the cost to do these things, that we love and that we love to bring to you. So if you'd like to make just a one-time donation, you can do it at paypal.me/the Dave Dynasty. Again, anything is appreciated. And if you really like us and you're a big fan of the show and you'd like to make ongoing monthly contributions, you can do that at patreon.com/The Dave Dynasty. We appreciate those things. Another way you can help is if you're going to go shopping on Amazon.com or highspots.com, first go to DaveDynasty.com. Click on the banners. That's our affiliate links. Do your shopping there. There's no additional charge to you, but we get a little kickback. It helps us out. And of course, man, if you're a wrestling fan, right, you like shirts, right? We all love shirts. I got a huge shirt collection. It's remarkable. It's an addiction. So go out and grab a Dave Dynasty Show shirt. We have a Pro Wrestling Tees store. You can just go to prowrestlingtees.com/The Dave Dynasty and find us. We have the classic Dave Dynasty Show logo shirt. We have the Midwest Express shirt. We have some other things that we are working on, including, I can tell you, we are working, it's developed. We're fine tuning it, getting it ready for print. It will be up on Pro Wrestling Tees hopefully soon. Hopefully very soon. We are developing, are you ready for this? A Dr. Jerry Graham Jr. shirt. That's right. We're working with the Good Doctor to bring you a shirt on our Pro Wrestling Tees store. We know you love the Good Doctor. We know you love the Monthly Grams Gallery. So that shirt is coming soon. So go to prowrestlingtees.com/The Dave Dynasty. Buy a shirt. That helps us out. We appreciate it. We love what we do. We will always do it for free. But hey, your generosity helps. It helps us do that. Thank you once again for joining us. Thank you for everything you guys do. I love you all, man. I love talking to you guys. I love the feedback I get. I love seeing you guys when I do make it out for shows, which I know is not as often as I'd like, but when I do, I love meeting you guys. I love talking to you online and chatting with you on Facebook and on Twitter. And, I love finding like-minded people that share this passion for classic wrestling, particularly Midwest wrestling. It's always good to meet someone. So thank you for being you. Thank you for being part of the Midwest Express. Thank you for being a part of my life. Thank you for supporting the Dave Dynasty Show. Again, great show next week with Tyler Robinson and Brad Lehman. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.